welcome for tuning in to this month's Ag Science Cafe. I'm really excited to introduce y'all to Chrissy Smith with Friends of Netarts Bay. And I will pass the mic to you, Chrissy.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I was brought in to the Dive for Ag program because of my connections to the kind of the aquatic side of agriculture, but aquaculture and my connections to the oyster industry. I even helped, my husband and I owned our own oyster hatchery for a little while, but now I work for a nonprofit. So I thought today, I'm going to share my screen. I thought today that I would talk a little bit about what do nonprofits have to do with it, advancing science and understanding of our natural resources and natural resource-based industries through nonprofits. Why am I taking this route? The reason I thought I would introduce everybody to this topic and what nonprofits are is because when I was going through college and I have a degree in oceanography and marine resource management and education, science education, free choice learning, I didn't expect to be running a nonprofit, which is what I do now. And I also didn't expect to work for as many of the nonprofits as I have in my career or interact with as many as I do. So as all of you are kind of getting interested in the sciences, getting interested in agricultural sciences, or potentially aquaculture, the aquatic side of agriculture, you will likely run into nonprofits in different ways. And so I thought I would just kind of give you an idea of what a nonprofit is, because you may have heard of charities, you may have heard of nonprofits, you might not be 100% clear on what everything is. And so hopefully this will give you kind of a basic idea of what nonprofits do, and how you might interact with them in the future. And also that there is a really great opportunity for a career in the future. So I'm with the Friends of Netarts Bay, Watershed, Estuary, Beach and Sea. As Kristen introduced me, you heard that. We like to abbreviate ourselves as WEBS, or Friends of Netarts Bay, WEBS, some kind of combination of that. And our goal is to sustain the Netarts Bay area through education and stewardship. We are a charitable organization, and the way we do that is we raise funds through private donations. So everyday citizens that decide that, we are a worthy charity to donate to will give us money, and also through grants. And using that funding, we can offer programs for K through 12 students that get them out in natural environment learning. We also can offer free public programs to our community. And we like to keep them free so that we can eliminate barriers to access. And then we also encourage our local community members to get involved in science research through community science opportunities and stewardship. So we're a nonprofit. I'm talking about what are nonprofits, and that you might be introduced to nonprofits at some point in a way. So what exactly is that? A nonprofit is an organization that works to serve a public purpose. They're usually organized around a cause, a mission, or a community need. It's essentially a business, but different than regular businesses, the earned income goes back to benefiting the organization and not a particular individual like the owner or shareholders. There are a ton of different kinds of nonprofits too. Nonprofits work towards feeding people, sheltering people, helping people that are displaced. Homeowners associations qualify as a nonprofit. A sports league could be a nonprofit. Religious organizations, environmental education organizations, childcare, volunteer firefighters, all of these things kind of get lumped into different types of nonprofits. A lot of times when you hear about a nonprofit, or you might hear charity or a charitable nonprofit, there's a lot of similarities, but there's also differences. And one thing to remember is that all charities are nonprofits, but not all nonprofits are charities. So what's that mean? And what's the difference? So a charitable organization is kind of unique because they can apply to become tax exempt, which basically means that they don't have to pay taxes on the funding or the income they end up being able to bring into their organization. So that's a pretty, as a charity, that's a beneficial thing to be able to do. Charitable organizations can also accept tax deductible donations. So that means that if you really like what our organization is doing, you can donate money to our organization. We will write a letter saying, yes, they donated this much money to us. And when it's time for you to pay your taxes, you can say, well, I donated to this charity. And as a result, you wouldn't have to pay as much. There's some other terms that you might hear people talk about when they're talking about nonprofits and charitable nonprofits. And those are 501Cs. And those are, that's the kind of the lingo is being used is to talk about the revenue code that is used to classify a nonprofit. And once you start hearing that, sometimes people won't even call themselves a nonprofit. They call themselves a 501c6 or a 501c this. And that's essentially what they're talking about. And so it can take the mystery out of what that means by understanding that it just means it's a type of nonprofit. For us as a charitable organization, we're a 501c3. And a lot of people will refer to themselves as that if they're a charitable nonprofit. Nonprofits tend to be run by boards. It's either required or kind of a best practice to be run by a board. And most often those boards are volunteers. So for our organization, we're a pretty small organization. And we have 11 board members. So I essentially have 11 bosses. They are my boss as the executive director, but they also provide guidance on how the organization is run. Our nonprofit is very small. We have one staff person, but nonprofits can be quite large and have multiple staff. They can be run at a local level, or they can be run at a national level, or even an international level. So why are we talking about this, and what does it have to do with agriculture, aquaculture, or the fisheries, or any other natural resource-based industry? There are so many different nonprofits that work in these particular fields. And so what I thought I would do is just kind of show you what some of them are and how they go, how they help agriculture and other industries. So here locally, we have a group called Food Roots, and Food Roots helps to connect farmers, processors, educators, nonprofits, all together to kind of help with make their local food economy stronger. They help with resources for farmers that are just building businesses. They help kind of connect different processors together to make it easier for them to work. And they bring lots of really great education programs into our school. And they work very strongly at a local level. When we talk about aquaculture, a great example is the Pacific Coast Shellfish Growers Association. They work in a regional level. So they work from Washington to California and Hawaii. And they assist basically any farmer that would be growing like a clam or mussel or an oyster. So any bivalves particularly. And they work to help them get the services they need. They help with permitting. They will help find funding when there's kind of issues with, recently there's issues with water quality. They helped find funding to help research what was going on. So they generally work towards supporting those industries. The Nature Conservancy is an example of an international nonprofit. And the Nature Conservancy also assists with these different industries in many different ways. One way that I'm involved with the Nature Conservancy is through the Shellfish Growers Climate Coalition. And this is something the Nature Conservancy has been managing. And it's a team of shellfish growers that are advocating for more attention on climate issues and ocean acidification. Other nonprofits work in partnership with natural resource-based industries, primarily to try and help kind of work within the community to create a balance between environmental protection and land use, and kind of work as a team towards addressing those issues, which everybody wants to make sure we're doing in our local area. I worked with the Lower Nehalem Watershed Council, and in that position, I worked with the timber industry. We helped add funding to make better fish passage within streams that were in logged areas, or create a better passage for a road that is passing over a stream. We also worked with farmers to help solve problems when different things popped up on their properties. For example, we had a farmer that had a failed tide gate. We helped fund a different tide gate to go in that would also be more fish friendly. So very mutually beneficial to both causes. The Tillamook Estuaries Partnership does very similar work across the whole county and not within one particular watershed. They also work strongly in connecting with the fishing industry, as well as doing a lot of education. And there is a huge number of nonprofits that go and work in these particular areas. So my friend, that's the executive director of Food Roots, shared this with me, which is the Oregon Community Food Systems Network. And this is a group of 56, this is a partnership. There's 56 nonprofits that have joined this partnership and work together across a whole slew of natural resource-based, particularly agriculture and land-based agriculture, but also aquaculture. And there's a whole list of different types of nonprofits here, from helping get businesses started, to helping create better access, to helping improve the way different businesses work. Others are focused on creating more sustainability, but there's a lot of different nonprofits that work within this world. So that's the background on what a nonprofit is and how there's a lot of overlap within the agriculture and aquaculture and natural resources. But what do we do? So we're an example of a nonprofit. We're a very small nonprofit. Like I said, I was only one staff person. What we work towards doing is sustaining the Netarts Bay Area through education and stewardship, as I said before, and you can see our mission statement down below. But what I thought I would do is kind of walk you through some of the things that we do, and then also highlight how we overlap with the agriculture and aquaculture world. So we have 8 school programs. Actually, I think that number is a little higher now, from pre-K through high school. We also offer 30 community programs, various stewardship and community science programs. And through our work of trying to bring in grant money and private donations, we actually end up funneling about $60,000 back into our local community through the school system. At our heart, we're a volunteer organization. Like I said, there's only one staff person. And so we really rely on our community members coming out that share a passion and share our mission to help us drive our work forward. So we have a strong working board and a passionate team of volunteers that help us organize what we do, execute it, and come up with new ideas and help us grow into the future. We also work really closely with a number of different community partners to be able to make all of these things come together. We're really focused on education, and at our heart, we're an environmental education organization. And we really strive to bring opportunities for people to get out and learn, because we believe that if they learn a little bit more about this particular area, if they fall in love with a bird, if they think it's super awesome that salt marsh plants excrete salt crystals on their blades and are fascinated by it, then we know that they will be better stewards as they're living here, working here, or visiting here. And so we have a lot of different opportunities and ways for people to get out, from kayaking to hikes to geology programs to birding. These are just opportunities for people to experience the bay, to experience the watershed around the bay and learn about it. This is some scenes from our kayaking program, where we take people kayaking, teach them the basics of kayaking with Kayak Tillamook County. And then we go out in search of the different plants, algae, and critters that call Netarts Bay home, emphasizing good stewardship and best practices while being on the water. We also take people out into the rocky intertidal, and we share about these unique environments. We also give people the tools they need to learn more, the tools they need to engage more, even on a more policy level with protecting our rocky shores. And we take people out on guided hikes to kind of learn a little bit more about the ecology of the area, and to appreciate and understand the wildlife that might be passing through. Like on this particular trip, we saw some whale. There it is right now, well-timed, some whales. Because our emphasis is to help people connect with this area, we also want to make sure we build in art and history. We do a number of programs with the Grand Ronde tribes to bring in the tribal history of this area and connect it back to, arts and traditional knowledge. We also have photography, pottery on the bay, and painting on the bay. And then we offer a number of stewardship projects. So these are ways for people to give back to the local area through South Beach cleanups, and also through our Weed Detectives program, where we have people map out invasive plants in the area, and then we build partnerships to help remove those invasive plants where possible. One of our strongest pieces is school-based education. And like I said before, we have a number of different school programs that we offer every year for pre-K through high school. So what do we do that's related to agriculture? And particularly, we are although we consider ourselves, to focus on the watershed, estuaries, beaches, and seas, which would include, non-aquatic environments. We are pretty marine and aquatic focused. And so when we overlap with the agriculture community, we're more overlapping with aquaculture. And one of the key things that we do is we've over the years built on my knowledge of the oyster industry to build a partnership with Whiskey Creek Shellfish Hatchery, which grows juvenile larval oysters, mussels, and clams. And we do tours there, and we also do tours of local oyster farms. We also represent the Whiskey Creek Shellfish Hatchery with the Shellfish Growers Climate Coalition, like I mentioned before. So these are just some scenes from our oyster tours that we tend to do that take people through the hatchery and then out to the farm. And we also connect them with different chefs in the area and in Portland that also can help teach about how to cook oysters, or can connect, kind of get them that full experience from how they're grown to how they're on their plate. We also have worked together to bring other programs to the area. Particularly, we worked with a lot of partners to get Shop at the Docks Garibaldi going within our community. We weren't the key champion of that effort, but we certainly helped support it and get it going, which is now run by Oregon State University Extension in the Extension office. This is a great program that's up and running that talks about the fishing industry within our local community, and it helps people connect with fishermen that are bringing in product on a daily basis to understand what's coming into the port, but also to help people understand where to buy fresh seafood, what to do once they do buy fresh seafood from the dock, and just what questions to ask to make sure their seafood's fresh and sustainably caught. So that was a lot. So I thought I would just kind of show you a little bit about what is a day in the life of working for a small nonprofit on the North Oregon coast. And so what I opted to do is I just kind of took a look at what I did over the last 3 weeks to kind of show you what it's truly like to work for a nonprofit. And what I think you'll see is that there's just a variety of jobs that you do when you work for an organization like the Friends of Netarts Bay. So over this last month, I have been a part of a number of different meetings. I sat in on a meeting to talk about Explore Nature, which is a cool partnership within the county that promotes outdoor recreation and learning within our community. It's brought together a number of organizations that have a similar mission to ours to highlight natural resource-based industries. This is where Shop at the Docks Garibaldi often gets advertised, but also to highlight different efforts within the community to conserve and protect our natural resources. We've had a board meeting last night. We've had a number of different STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math meetings for the Tillamook County area to kind of coordinate and collaborate on projects. And then we've had a number of other community partner meetings just to talk about how we can grow and support each other here in the local community. It's also grant time. So I've spent the last 2 weeks really spending time writing our grants, which to help us get support to continue to run over the next year and run our programs over the next year. And it was also time to evaluate our budget. So we looked at what we spent so far this year, and we projected what we were going to need for the next year. We had 2 programs going this month. These are multi-day programs that usually happen at the school, but because of the pandemic, we actually brought the program. These usually happen at the bay, so in the field, but we had to take them to the schools this year because of the pandemic. But we ran a 4th and 5th grade program. So this required getting up before the sun even rose to collect animals from the bay, taking those animals to the school, collecting crabs, recruiting people to do crab dissections with the kids. We did a station on oysters and ocean acidification. We looked at phytoplankton and zooplankton. We investigated coastal geology, and we looked at the kind of how energy shapes our coastline with 4th graders. And then we took all of those animals back to the bay. We also spent a day filming with the Dye for Ag crew at the hatchery. So you can see some, actually, this is a little video. See some mussel larvae in action down there in the bottom corner. We worked with the team at OSU to capture this footage of the hatchery this month as well. We also led our volunteers on some opportunities to do community science. So this is up here on the left is a team of people doing beach bird surveys. And then we got ready for our next round of school field trips. And we actually went out and collected, or I went out and collected hermit crabs for our kindergarten program, which will talk about habitats and hermit crabs. And that's essentially the day in the life of a nonprofit. I hope it was a little bit of an abrupt end here, but hopefully you can understand a little bit more about what a nonprofit does, how different nonprofits can interact with agricultural sciences, natural resources, or aquaculture. I hope it gets you thinking about a different potential career. I know I certainly didn't expect to be running a nonprofit. And I also hope that you got a glimpse into like the variety and broad, kind of the diverse set of duties you would do if you were running a nonprofit the size of Friends on Netarts Bay, which can be a lot of fun, very unique opportunities and different tasks, but also is about running a nonprofit business as well. So it can be a very exciting and dynamic work environment where you can really guide how things go. You can make a lot of change working for a nonprofit, but there are certainly is a lot of balls to keep in the air. So there's hopefully a little bit of insight into nonprofits you might visit with in the future as you pursue your careers, and maybe even getting you to think of nonprofits as a potential career resource for you. So if you have any questions, I have my email on the screen. I also encourage you to stay connected with us online. You can find us on social media, Facebook and Instagram at Netarts Bay Webs. You can find us on YouTube, and you can certainly are welcome to visit our website, netartsbaywebs.org, to learn a little bit more about what we specifically do and offer. But that's what I have for you today. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.